This is one of my absolute favorite finds. Walking down the street or driving and you go, stop and pull over because you have found something awesome that you can paint and recreate and upcycle. It's exactly what happened with this piece. We found it out on the street and it is in solid, good condition. And we can use this to stage up a faux fireplace, but it's got a dated look to it. The color is not something that's gonna fit our decor, and I wanted to just change it up a little bit. So my go-to for adding texture and old world flair is Fresco. Fresco is an amazing, easy to use texturizing additive powder. All you do is add it to the paint. It's super simple. And you are in control of how much texture you create just by how much you add to the paint. So for a piece this size, you're only gonna need a small bag such as this. If you're thinking of doing larger items, walls, etc., you can grab a more economy value size. Let's get started. So I'm going to take our ash in the Fusion Mineral Paint, and I'm going to mix the Fresco into a different container with it. So we're going to pour, for this piece, maybe about 1/3 of the pint, because ash covers really well and goes really far, so I don't need too much of it. And I'm going to do almost a 1-to-1 ratio because I want to really create a lot of texture to it. So whatever the one part of paint is, you want to add about 1 part of the Fresco as well. And I'm just going to eyeball this, because this is one of those products that you absolutely can eyeball because you can adjust how much texture you create with it. So I'm gonna take a whisk and I'm just going to start stirring. It's kind of like making pancake mix, except you don't want it to go nice and smooth. You wanna keep it chunky. That's the idea. So you're gonna be painting with a more chunkier paint. So here I added maybe a little bit too much Fresco because it's really sticking. I want to have it be a little bit more runny, so I'm just going to add a little more paint. Again, you just kind of go with it. There's no exact science or rule as to how you absolutely have to do it. There we go. So let's give this another little stir. It's great. It takes literally a minute to make your Fresco mix. And there we go. It's a little bit more runny and watery and chunky. That's what we want. So I'm going to leave this here to the side. Now, when you're working with Fresco, you don't want to be using a really high quality brush. You don't need to invest in that because we're literally going to slap it on, and the messier, the better. It's going to add more texture. You want to see brush strokes. You want to see all of that. So natural fibers are great. I also have these workshop brushes. These happen to be synthetic fiber. Doesn't matter, you can use it. And I'm just going to start to apply. Now, I'm not gonna do any prep to this other than I did wipe down the dirt. That's all I did. And here we go. I am brushing it on. You're kind of dragging. You don't wanna smooth it out too much because you wanna leave that texture. But if you can see, it's got a lot of sort of like little globs and it looks pretty chunky, but it's still sort of malleable. It's smooth. You can smooth it out when you start to paint with it. So I'm just gonna get a little bit on there. And if you put more pressure onto it, it kind of smooths it out a little bit. I love using ash because of the coverage. It's just so great. It's kind of like my go-to base for anything that I want to have some distressing on. And all I'm gonna need is 1 coat of this on here. So I'm gonna continue putting on my 1 coat of ash with this Fresco, and we'll be back soon for our next step. So again, you're in control with how much texture you want with this. So you can smooth it out by applying more pressure or less pressure to keep that texture. It's really up to you. Again, there is no right or wrong way to do this. I would say experiment a little bit, practice a little bit and see, but if you're going for that more rustic look, farmhouse texture, something that's been painted over and over again, adding this and then another coat over top of it and distressing, it's just gonna look as if it's really 100 years old. It's awesome. So we finished with our first coat of Fresco mixed with ash. That's our texturizing powder to create a more old world look and effect onto this fireplace mantle. Now for our next step, I'm gonna use a contrasting color called Bedford. It's a very light sort of muted sage type green, kind of a bit of a gray to it. And I really like using contrasting colors so that when we do some distressing afterwards, you're really gonna see that come through. Plus, any of the texture that we left behind there is really gonna show up when you have two very different colors. So for this, I want to actually turn my paint into a very chalky, flat, matte finish. So I'm gonna use the Fresco in a different way. Instead of texturizing my paint, I'm actually going to make it a very flat, flat, flat finish. Very easy to do this. You're gonna take a tablespoon, and all you need to turn the entire pint into this chalky, chalky, smooth, flat finish is 2 scoops of the Fresco. There's a little bit shy there, so just add another half. So 2 tablespoons of the Fresco powder and 1 tablespoon of water. Just a little touch more there. And I'm gonna take my whisk and I'm just going to give it a little stir up there to make a bit of a paste. And this paste is going to be poured into the paint, and it's gonna make a super chalky, matte, flat finish paint. So to get it all out of the cup, I'm just gonna pour a little bit into here first to make it easier to pour out. So it's gonna turn my whole pint into this sort of super chalky, flat finish. Makes it a little bit easier for distressing as well, because Fusion Mineral Paint has the acrylic resin in it. It is so incredibly strong and durable. So sometimes if you want to make it a little bit easier to distress, you can add some of this Fresco powder to it. All right, and now we're gonna get started applying. I'm gonna be using a natural fiber bristle. Before we used a synthetic brush in a very inexpensive brush. This one I just wanted to show natural bristles help to create texture as well. So if you're looking for a more sort of hand painted look, it's a really, really great brush to use. There we go. So I'm applying the Bedford, which is sort of a light, sort of sagey green gray over top of the ash. And I've just mixed a little bit of that Fresco with some water into the paint here because I'm going for a super dead flat paint finish look. And just adding a little bit of that Fresco keeps your paint actually smooth, but you get a nice flat finish. So we have applied our second coat of Fresco, which was the Bedford, mixed with the sort of chalky flat finish, just a little bit of Fresco in there to really make it super matte and flat. Now here comes the fun part. This is where we get to see all the texture that we created by doing a wet distress. So I'm gonna take my little dishwashing sponge here, dip it in some water. And this has been about maybe an hour to 2 hours after. And I'm just going to start to gently go up and down here, and you can see wherever the texture was, you can start to see the color underneath show through. So you want to take a rag and just sort of wipe away. There you go. And you can really start to see all that fun texture come through. This is a really easy way to distress. There we go. You really see that come through beautifully. Wipe away with the cloth. I always use a cloth nearby because sometimes you can distress a lot and you end up over distressing because you kind of mix in the pigments and you don't see what you've removed. There we go. And anywhere that raised area is a great area to start distressing. So there you go. So we're gonna start doing that to the whole piece. And then I think we're gonna throw maybe a little bit of aging wax on there and then stage it up. So here is our after of our fabulous sidewalk find. This was painted up in the Fresco, first coat of ash, and then we painted a coat of Bedford and did a little bit of distressing. And I did finish it off with an aging wax all around. So it's got a really nice soft feel to it. I'm calling it French Chateau Chic meets sidewalk find. And I love how it's turned out. Again, we've brought in elements of nature. We've got feathers, we've got fabric, faux fur, we've got candles. the metal as well. Really great element to bring into, just to kind of add dimension to what you've got going on there. And all the colors flow really nicely. It's very neutral. There's really no pops of color. We did bring in some bronze accents, some pink sparkle down there, some of my favorites. And then now we have this piece right here just to add a little bit of glam and some more color. And there you go, it's all staged up. And you could do this to a real fireplace mantle if you wanted to. This one will just end up being for show. And there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this fabulous flip.